Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for being here today on Deborah Kobylt Live. Okay, relationship issues. I've got the guest for you today, Dr. Nancy Lee. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me.
You've been in practice for over 20 years in Beverly Hills. You've seen and heard it all.
I've seen and heard it all, and it's actually over 30 years, but I stopped counting at 30.
Incredible. And you wrote such a terrific book. I'm telling you, pick it up. Even if you're in a relationship, pick it up. Don't sleep with him yet. I love this. A badass guide to dating in 10 empowering steps. You call them steps, not chapters. So I remember I was like, wait a minute, chapter? Oh, she calls them steps. This is one of the best books because you really do give good advice on where to meet people. So many people are going to bars or Tinder, and you're a little bit of old-fashioned, if you will, sense of a great way to meet a great person in your life, but for today's world, which is what I love.
Exactly. Dating culture, sex culture, it's changed.
Yeah.
So you absolutely have to keep up with what's out there, but be yourself and be honest for what you want.
You said it's changed. How has it changed? And from when has it changed? Like in my mom's day where they were, supposedly virgins when they got married? Oh my God, could you imagine? But seriously?
So the main thing is that now women have so many choices and options, but often they feel like they are obligated to sleep with a guy really quickly. And that's where the problem comes in. So it's actually interesting. The title has resonated really well with people.
It's the best. It's unbelievable. Don't sleep with him yet. And you're like, wait, wait a minute. When do I sleep with a guy? So go ahead.
Well, it's not that I'm telling women not to sleep with somebody. I'm giving them permission not to. So instead of feeling like pressured by a guy, like I have to sleep with him on the X date, oh, wow, it's okay if I don't. Or for young women, I've actually had young patients come to me and are college students, for example. If I don't hook up with these guys, or if I don't hook up with somebody, I'm going to have no social life.
Oh,
that's
a shame.
That's the wrong way to think.
This is where you need your girlfriends, but a lot of women don't have that confidence. Come on, a lot of people just don't, and they're thinking that maybe it will, butt into a relationship, and generally that's not the case. Isn't that true?
Again, I have these patients come, and they're great women. They're beautiful and smart and talented and accomplished. And they're talking about, I met this guy. It's going really well. I'm not quite ready to be intimate with him or to sleep together. So I say, don't. Do me a favor. Don't come in next week and tell me you slept together when you're not ready. Guess what? They come in, they sleep together. And within a few weeks to a month, predictably, they get blindsided.
Ugh.
The guy is like, I'm not ready for a relationship after all. I have too much going on. So it's about the whole book. The real emphasis is on knowledge and being true to yourself and informed choices. If you don't want to sleep with a guy, don't.
Well, you actually said something really interesting, that the next week they come in and they say that they did, and then it sort of unleashes all sorts of emotional feelings, you know what I mean? Then they have to get over him. Then they have to wonder what went wrong, or did they do something wrong? And the reality is you can almost preserve all that if you just don't sleep with him yet.
Right.
Wait
and get to know this dude. Is this somebody you may find later that this is somebody you didn't even want to get naked with. So don't.
Yeah, I love that. But you know what I love hearing? It's like, well, how do I know? We might not have chemistry. It's like, wait, figure out if you have chemistry at the movies and you have chemistry at, the local restaurant and in a park hiking or, whatever you do. Wait, and then let it evolve. I wasn't one who slept around in school, even though just about everybody was in college. I didn't get it because everybody was going home heartbroken. And I'm like,
Exactly. You were waiting. You made such a good point, Deborah, when you said that about, okay, wait, how do I know if there's chemistry? Honestly, the waiting process is part of that. If there isn't the buildup of mystery and real eroticism and chemistry, it builds. That's how our brain works. There's a buildup. It isn't, excuse me, I don't mean to be crude, but it isn't just wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. There's a whole chemistry that builds, but you don't give it a chance if it's immediate.
Okay, Nancy, right? Nancy.
Yes, or Dr. Lee. Either
Dr.
one.
Lee.
Interchangeably.
Yeah, why? Why is this happening? Why do the men want to get, jump in the sack so quickly? Look, I got it. I mean, they want to have a good time. But why don't they want to wait a little bit and see if they know the girl? Because you know what? On the flip end, then they have the girl calling them and the girl won't leave them alone. Why don't they avoid that too and just say, I'm going to go on a few dates with this girl? I mean, right? What's the rush?
So sometimes men actually are feeling pressured also, and they don't want to have sex immediately. That said, men have 20 times more testosterone than women. So there you go. Like, hey, heck, their biology, especially if they're youngish or up through at least 40s, their biology is having them think about sex like almost constantly. But that said, they sometimes don't necessarily want to, and I'm talking about like full on sleeping with somebody immediately. I mean, so there you have it.
Yeah, I often would. Do you ever ask this to your patients, your female patients? Like, I don't know, are you like embarrassed just whipping off your clothes at some dude you don't even know? It's like, ew. No, I mean, I would be if I didn't know somebody and I just was like, I would feel strange.
Well, I make the point in the book. It's almost quoted verbatim. If you don't want to get naked with him, then don't. Don't people please with sex. And that brings up another excellent point in terms of, so again, college women, or even I see a lot of girls in high school now that talk about, oh, I met this really cute guy at a party and we hooked up, and oh, it's just like, he's just cute and I'm just attracted to him and I don't really care. Deborah, guess what? The next week, same girl comes into my office. She can't stop checking for a text that may or may not come.
God, what is it with us women? I mean, this is why we have to sort of keep our village intact. We have to be there for each other.
So important.
I sometimes wonder about our culture here in America. You know, we're so driven to succeed all the time, and I just wonder, our little village sometimes just breaks apart. As opposed to being there for each other more. Don't
Exactly. Supporting women, and men
family
supporting and men supporting women too.
Yeah.
And also, yes.
Let's go through a couple of chapters. I mean, I call them chapters. You call them steps.
Interchangeable.
Interchangeable. So actually, first up, have an intention when you date, right? I love the way you set this up. It is very, very well written. I'm telling you, it's not like your typical, don't sleep with a guy yet.
Thank you.
It's excellent. It's excellent. And I mean that. I don't say that lightly. Have an intention. What is your intent on going on this date, correct?
Right. And that gets back to the definition of dating, which often gets lost. It's getting to know somebody romantically. So at some point, yes, sex and intimacy, physical intimacy, emotional intimacy, it's all involved, but getting to know somebody romantically doesn't necessarily mean hopping into bed on the second date.
Well, okay, here's a quick question, down and dirty. When should you hop into bed with a guy?
It's so different for everybody.
Like, could it be second date? Should it be 3 months? I mean, what's sort of kind of the guideline?
And it
varies.
So the parameters where it's arbitrary and random, second date, third date, 90 days, sorry, you can return an item in 90 days, but parameters tend to be really something that's
really fluid, right? Yeah.
Very contrived, and they do people a disservice. It's more about, when do you feel that this is right? When do you feel like you have an emotional connection with the person? When are you ready? In chapter 9, I give a whole lot of guidelines in there. And again, there's sometimes where there are instances where a woman is not looking for a cosmic connection, and it really just is about, well, I can, so why not at least make sure you're respected? But I go through the whole range of just checklists to figure out when you may be ready.
They're very, very, I'm going to go through them, actually. Do you mind?
Okay.
I'm going to start
please.
over here. Okay, you're just starting to date somebody. Who to look out for when a guy is trouble? A lot of times women will just sort of say, well, he had a bad day. Don't. No excuses for the guy, right? If he's a jerk, he's a jerk. I love this. Commitment phobes. A lot of people are commitment phobes. Newly divorced. Get out, right? I mean, come on. He's
Typically.
got probably all kinds. I think so.
Typically.
I mean, just, give him a little space.
Exactly.
What is an emotional manipulator and a narcissist? I find them very difficult to figure out.
Okay, so I'll start with narcissism. And by the way, there are lots of narcissists. Narcissism is not exclusive to men. There are female narcissists as well. But a narcissistic guy would be somebody who charms you immediately. He's very charming. He knows what to say, knows what to do, he knows what to say and what to do to lure you in. But then all of a sudden, when you try to talk about yourself or your concerns, no, it doesn't.
Boy,
it
I was just
doesn't
out to
fly
dinner.
with him.
I was just out to dinner with a couple, and they were not married. They were dating. And every time she said something, and she was lovely, he just cut her off and I thought, oh God, I hope you don't date this guy very long, because I thought he was a jerk, you know?
And he
I
probably
know
was.
him. And I thought, no wonder why you haven't been, in a serious relationship. He just cut her off all the time. So
Right. And at some point with a narcissist, they're very cold in terms of the woman's needs. They're not empathizing with her. It's all about themselves. What I tell patients, girlfriends, look at what a narcissist does versus what he says, because what a narcissist does is all about himself.
So
Emotional manipulators,
they're kind of one and the same a little bit.
there's a
aren't
lot of
they?
overlap. So an emotional manipulator is all about, it's a power and control over somebody else. An emotional manipulator is that guy that causes you to doubt your own perceptions. So I'll give you a really common example of this. A woman might say, "Hey, I feel neglected or ignored when we're sitting at dinner and all you're doing is checking your phone." And instead of saying, "Oh gosh, that's a good point. I didn't realize I was doing it," an emotional manipulator will say, "Can you just stop criticizing me?"
Oh my God.
You see,
I know a lot of people like that, and I have to tell you, they will then just push it out on the other person, and then you feel awful about yourself. Like, wait, whoa, what did I do?
absolutely.
I think that is a common trait with a lot of men. I really do.
And
I do, and then they make you feel awful about it. And I've seen it. That guy that I was at dinner with, my friend.
Yeah, and then emotional manipulators will often lie by omission. So I'll give you an example of a patient. She met this guy actually in a bar, but they really hit it off and things were going really well. He talked about a girlfriend that he had broken up with. So flash forward, they went a couple weeks later, they went away for the weekend. We're intimate. On the ride back, she got "Oh, by the way, I'm married."
Oh,
But we live.
I would have killed him. I would have killed him at the stoplight. I would have.
But we live separate lives. So that emotional manipulation was lying by omission.
What did she do? Please tell me she left.
She dumped the dude with therapy.
That is hard to do.
I had a role in that.
Oh my God, I'm sure you did, because you're really terrific. Everything you say here is great advice. What do you do in a case? So if you're already hooked and you love him, we talked about this. Having trouble letting go. I can't tell you how many friends I've had to literally talk off the ledge. How do you let go when you have trouble letting go?
You dig deep and really trust what is it that you want, and what is it that you want out of life and out of the relationship. And sometimes it's really difficult to know.
Well, especially if the emotional manipulator comes back and
That's
says,
right.
We had some really good times. I would like to. And then she goes in a little deeper,
Right.
and then he's like, whoa. That's very difficult. And then it kind of this is when women get the crazy name. Oh my God, you're acting crazy. It's like, really?
No,
Maybe you're causing me to act crazy.
And that's classic emotional manipulation.
Yeah.
Trust your instincts, trust your judgment. So many times women don't, which is really interesting because men do, by the way.
Why don't we? Please tell me. Why don't women just say, this doesn't feel right?
Part of it is our limbic system. Excellent question, but it gets into brain science.
Yeah.
There are more dense connections in the area of our limbic system that's responsible for emotional decision making and reading people emotionally. Now, that'll work well for us sometimes because we can be very analytic about emotions, but it works against us when we overanalyze to our own detriment.
Interesting. Oh my gosh.
That's in the book too.
Everything is in this book. Let me hang on, because I'm going through this.
It's packed. There's over
It's
while you're going through.
unbelievable.
There's over 100 references. I've been
love this.
researching this since I'm 13 years old.
Chapter, okay, I call it chapter 4. I love this one. In chapter 4, you put, because nobody knows how to meet anybody, right? Where do you meet them? Give us some places to meet men. It seems a little old-fashioned and ridiculous, but it's true. You have athletic groups such as hiking. Not like at the gym where you're checking out the muscles, right? I mean, maybe at the gym, but if you're in a group, right, you're in a group setting.
It's especially in a group where you see the same people over and over.
You get to know each other.
You get to know each other. You maybe not right away, but eventually, and everybody has some passion that they haven't explored.
Right.
So worst comes to worst, you join a group, whether it's athletic or maybe
the gym,
or maybe it's something
not the gym, the museum or something.
Right, or a continuing education class, or just something that you might be interested in that you haven't explored.
Right, you've got civic, philanthropic, or political groups. A lot of people, they're not joining that stuff, but if they did, not just to meet somebody, but if you enjoy it,
you'll get something out of it, and you'll expand your horizons in networking. Some really fun things I even have in there are like line dancing, salsa dancing.
Okay, I had to stop there.
Oh.
I'm like, all right, who the heck is going line dancing in LA? I'm sorry. But I'm like, well, I don't know anybody going line dancing. Do you?
Actually, yes,
Okay.
but not in West LA. But there's a lot of parts of like broader LA where there is line dancing.
Wouldn't that be fun, though?
It's a lot of fun.
You go meet somebody and you're dancing and you're laughing,
Absolutely.
undoubtedly, because you're not going to be, and then it
Right.
just lowers, it makes you more relaxed. I think that's what it is, too. You just need to be more relaxed instead of always on the hunt.
Absolutely. Even so, we talk about bars, hunting ground, maybe not so much, but what about a wine tasting or
That's a good one.
taking your own book to a wine bar and reading it? And if somebody looks at you and you make eye contact and you're attracted, trust me, a conversation will start. So sometimes
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Take your book to your favorite wine bar, not one that's on Yelp is best place to meet a guy, right?
Exactly.
But do something you organically like first, because then at least you're kind of yourself when you meet the guy.
in your own neighborhood.
I mean, I think that's in your own neighborhood. Then you also we talked about the entire Tinder life, Tinders, Bumble. Isn't there one called Coffee Meets
It's
Bagel?
bagel,
Okay,
right.
this is really funny. I thought you were saying, go out for coffee with the guy and have a bagel. I swear to God, I didn't even
Do
know.
that too.
No, I didn't even know there was an app called that. I'm like, wait a minute, what? So what do you do? Do you go on this stuff or do you stay off of this stuff?
You go on. So that's another really good question. So research shows that the best way, the most common way that couples get together is actually through friends.
Right.
So I don't want to forget about blind dating. That's important. We'll come back to that.
Okay.
The second most common way is through the internet. So think about this. 38 million Americans have either used a dating app or a dating site. That's 15% of the adult population. So welcome to this century.
Yeah, I was going to say, welcome to the century. Talk about the differences in dating.
That's it. Exactly. And it does really allow people to meet people they wouldn't have met otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
That said, if you're frustrated, if things aren't going well for you, take a break and then come back to it when you're ready.
What about, they have, like, if you're of Jewish descent, J-Date, or they have ones for, people of the same religions or something like that, right? Do you recommend that? Because at least you automatically have something in common.
Try a few different ones. What I tell people, and I get the feedback from a lot of my patients and friends, so I learn from them as well.
So this is a good thing. Okay.
Yeah, so what seems to work best is when people try a couple different ones and kind of settle in when they'll say, I seem to meet better guys on this. The one that I'm finding lately that's working really well for people is Hinge.
Hinge.
Yeah, and that's it's kind of interesting because it was relaunched in 2016 as the relationship app. So which also shows a trend even in dating apps towards, people want relationships versus hookups. I mean, everything. Honestly, everything is online, but it's good to know that there are lots of men, trust me, because I see them in my office. There are tons and tons of men looking for relationships, for really committed, solid relationships.
Okay.
It's not all about hookups.
Where are they going?
they're going all over. They're going out internet, through friends, going out, meeting people organically. Same as you, really. No difference.
Yeah. Well, for me, it was, we just meet him in college or meet him at work. Really, that was the best way. And in a way, you didn't have such a giant choice. It was either through your work or family and friends. And in a way, I didn't meet anybody through the culture of apps because I was already involved.
Right.
But it would have been interesting.
But you want to look at that as an opportunity as well.
Yeah.
Another really interesting statistic is if you've been together with a partner or a spouse 5 years or less, there's a 12% chance you met on a dating app. So that really says, ladies, don't give up. Don't give up on online dating.
Or men.
Or
I
men.
mean, how do you empower a woman to be okay if they're not because I really think I have single friends who are divorced, and okay, what do you do if you've been divorced or you're no longer in a relationship, and let's say you're over 40 or 45, and I know they have apps for that too, but that's got to be really tough, and they're going to the bars where all the wealthy guys are. I'm like, oh my God, don't do that,
But it's also really important not to buy in to this message that every single guy is looking for like 20-year-old hottie. No.
Okay.
The guys that are really wanting to settle down or want a really substantial relationship are not necessarily just going to be looking for something shiny and new. So definitely don't buy into that, I'm too old. I mean, I know women, honestly, in their 70s and 80s. So
well, we all want love.
Absolutely.
Want love, right?
Right. I mean, look, my own father died a couple years ago. My parents had a wonderful, long-term marriage, but my mom met a man shortly after, and they're in a great relationship.
Yeah.
I will not say how old she is on the air because I don't want to be killed.
How old he is?
Either one of them. But
so is he older or younger?
They're very close. He's older, but they're close in age.
Okay, so it's not like she went for the hottie like 20 years younger or something.
No.
That's a trend where women are dating younger men. Does that last?
It's different for everybody.
Yeah, it is.
And it also depends, with due respect to Madonna, it depends what you're it depends what you're looking for. Where are you in your life? What do you want? It really depends.
At the end of the day, though, I don't think much has changed. There may be apps, and different ways to meet people. But I think, oops, our screen just went off. Are we still on the air?
We're still on the
Oh, the screen was off. I can't see myself.
Okay.
What am I? The light went off too,
Yeah.
actually. Any way to get that on while we're on the air?
Yeah, I'll change the bulb. Keep talking.
Okay. Oh, I don't know what I'm going to look like, but hey, what are you going to do? I think our oh well, something went off. We'll just keep walking. We'll keep talking. I actually lost my train of thought. It really threw me off. But
we were talking about the age differential and things. So, and not getting, for women especially, not buying into these cultural messages like you have to be this or that. Be true to yourself.
What about, I love this one, step 9. Don't sleep with him yet. But you talk about boundaries, sexual boundaries, and respecting yourself. I really think that if you set that up early, even if you don't, almost like you have to believe it, even if you don't, just force yourself to do it. Hold back. But then you talk about the best sex ever. About just letting go and going forward, about the tease, about all of it.
Right. And that gets lost. Unfortunately, again, if you look at surveys, women, despite having lots of sex, are enjoying it less. So,
wait, what?
There you go. So our own sexual satisfaction has been neglected. So quality, chapter 10 is talking a lot about the quality of sex. And I bring up a whole new way of enjoying sex sensually. What's really interesting is, so being a clinical psychologist, and just especially after my book was done, I looked at some of other people's books, and I'd hear about things from patients, and I'm probably the only psychologist brave enough to actually talk about sex pretty graphically. Of course, I wasn't going to say anything in the book that would embarrass my sons, but basically, sex is an important when two people are ready for it. Sex is a beautiful, important part of a
beautiful,
relationship
it's important,
and life.
It releases so much. It makes you closer. What happens to couples? Okay, here's another one who've been together like forever, and it's just gone. What do you do? Because I feel like I should have had your job. People always come to me and go, Deborah, where it's just gone, and both people don't even want it. What do you do about that? Do you keep the relationship?
You buy the book, you read chapter 10. Okay, I talk about
that's
that in
common
there,
too.
and it's really common. You really do have to work to rekindle that spark. And there are ways that our brain works that people aren't aware of. So one thing is risk and novelty are huge aphrodisiacs. So if you've been married for a while, change it up a little. Be a little bit risky.
Go in the car. Go do something
Exactly.
crazy.
Make out in public.
Seriously.
Make out in public.
Grab his butt.
Get the juices flowing. And there's lots of other ways as well.
No, tell me, come on. I mean, the more salacious, the better. I want to hear about it.
Go take the more salacious. Basically, do different spots in your home. So if it's always okay, we're in bed, same bed.
Boring.
But
try out the kitchen. Just go
or
wherever.
the floor in front of a mirror. Like honestly, try different things. Use fantasy. I mean, basically. So yeah, are you going to go home to your husband tonight and try some?
I've always been a little crazy, so it's like but just about anything, whether it's work or just playtime. I hate keeping stuff the same. So you're
really
preaching to the choir with me.
The key is two people really have to want to get that back with one another. If one person wants to and their partner is ho-hum, not going to happen. But if both people say, hey, let's bring some excitement back into our life, then absolutely.
Are people getting married later because it's harder to find someone to be with? Or are they just more concerned about their careers? Like, let's look at millennials, for example.
Okay.
Go ahead.
The demographic is skewing later. So now 27 for men anyway is the most common or average age of first marriage.
How about women?
Women is a little bit younger. I believe it's 26. But remember, this is national.
I was going to say national, but if you're in New York City or LA,
it would be
it's probably in your
late.
30s. Am I right?
It would seem to be later.
Yeah.
It would seem to be later. And I think it's all of the above. People are meeting and connecting later. Or they're, women are accomplished, they're pursuing careers. So it does skew later than it did 10 to 15 years ago. Mm-hmm. But again, if you look at things nationally, it's not as different a trend as we might assume.
Mm-hmm. And I also think what's changed is, women often felt a lot of pressure because, of their clock. But if you marry a little later, maybe you could, the ages also, you don't have to marry a guy older. You could be a couple of years younger, a few years. There's really no rules. I think it's maybe harder, but in some ways maybe more relaxed, the whole dating scene, don't you think?
Right. And also I think that couples are living together a lot more commonly. So
what about that? Living as opposed to marriage?
If you're planning an engagement or a marriage in the foreseeable future, or you're really devoted to each other, you're both really committed to the success of the relationship, then go for it. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. If it's a test drive, no. But that also, so living together is also probably pushing the age of marriage up a little bit than what it would have been earlier.
I love this, page 121, dating deal breakers. What are they? List a couple for us.
Oh, gosh. Okay. Don't get drunk on the first date. You want to be you. You don't want to be an altered version of you. Don't criticize his car, his clothing. Absolutely. Don't interrogate your date as though you're trying to figure out how much money he makes. These sound like common sense, right?
Ladies, you can find out that on Google. So come on.
There you go.
Why bug the guy? And same with the gentleman. You have to do the same thing with the gentleman too.
And don't overshare about yourself. Remember, this is a date. It's not a therapy session. So you may want to wait to divulge that your sister slept with your ex-boyfriend and so on. You may want to wait a bit to divulge that. Don't talk incessantly about your exes. Nobody wants to hear that, at least not on the first date. And one other thing really
Please.
important, girls, ladies, do not choose the most expensive restaurant in the city for your first date. Honestly, a coffee house can work really well. Especially if you don't.
I think it's more fun. What do you want to do getting all dressed up going to the Four Seasons for? But that's not me. You know, it might be somebody else. I know a lot of women will do that. They'll put on their most beautiful heels, their Chanels or their Valentino. I mean, good for them. I hardly dress that way. And, you know, then they want to be taken out. I think right there you're setting the bar too high. Even if the guy has the money and you do too, just go someplace fun.
Yeah, and you're setting the bar kind of strangely. It's not necessarily about really getting to know someone and focusing in on them. It's more about these accoutrements that may be important to you, not you, Deborah, but to you, but not necessarily to the guy.
Let's say you're out and you want to attract it. A lot of women don't know how to do this. How do you flirt? How do you get to know somebody that you might find attractive across the room? That's always so difficult, right? Like, what do? You know, pass over a drink or bump into them? What do you do?
And I love that. And that's step 7 right there. So I actually show women how to flirt. First of all, eye contact is so important.
That's embarrassing to me. If I look at somebody and I'm like this and I catch their eye, I'll look away if I don't know them. Because I'm like embarrassed because I feel like I reveal so much in my eyes.
You do. And
Yeah.
that's probably, but that embarrassment can be exciting. If you're attracted to somebody and you catch their eye and he catches your eye and you look away, that is actually super exciting. In fact, there's a neurotransmitter in our brain called phenylethylamine. So it's abbreviated. If anybody wants to Google this, just abbreviate capital P, capital E, capital A. But that is released when we are attracted to somebody, and eye contact does that really well. Also, just being aware of your surroundings, looking up, that's also super helpful.
Right. Wow, incredible. So we've actually gone through a lot of it. I mean, dating now versus another era, good sex, how to have like the best sex ever, just sort of be out there. And I also like just be upfront, right? Like really, ladies, you don't need to bullshit. Just whoever you are, however you're dressing. I mean, obviously put your best face forward, but you don't have to lie about it. I mean, because eventually the guy's going to find out, and vice versa, men. You know, just be who you are. I've been in that position where you really want to just, project that you're amazing, but
if you're upfront and communicate what you want in a relationship,
or
in anything, that's what you're going to attract back. If you pretend to be somebody you're not, and with regard to dating and sex, if you act like really cavalier, like I don't care, that's what you're going to attract somebody who doesn't care right back. So really, that's actually a real theme of the book that comes over. But I write about this over and over. Just really be upfront, be true to yourself. You don't have to conform to what's right for somebody else. Be upfront in a relationship, or Deborah, as you said, about anything else in your life. Be upfront about what it is that you want.
Yeah, and if you just start that way, and I know what it's like. I mean, a lot of us go out there, and even if we seem like we're projecting that we got it all, on the inside, we're just a nervous wreck that nobody will like us. And I mean, I'm like that too. We all are.
We all are to an extent.
To an extent we are. And just realize that he probably is too. So if you're a little genuine, that's easier said than done.
That's true. And there's a whole chapter on there on how to build up your confidence and just trusting yourself and what you project. Absolutely. Also, people pleasing has become really problematic for women.
I'm a terrible people pleaser.
Aren't we all? Hello.
I'm the worst. I mean, and it's really to my detriment. I will try and please anyone, my kids, just anyone. There's somebody in the elevator. It's like, really enough.
Right.
Because we're sort of taught that if we don't, then we're selfish. I can't stand that,
Yes. Women, especially, not men, they've escaped this, but women we've become acculturated to being people pleasers.
Why?
That's a question that's so difficult to answer, but it's such a good one. I think it really has to do with women seem soft and accommodating. So right at birth, Sally is being told, "Oh, bring me this cup of water," and her twin brother is the one who gets the little cup of water brought to him. But
true.
again, especially you don't want to people please with sex. So there's a difference between being kind and aware of what other people's needs are, and people pleasing is doing something you don't want to do to make everybody else happy.
That's such a big one. It is for me, I know. And then, but that's why it's so important for women, girls, to have a career or work and to be physically active, just to get out there. Sports are so important for young girls if they're so inclined,
Exactly. Even if it's not a career path, find something that fills up your day that you love and be engaged in your life. Mm-hmm. I know so many homemakers who don't have a career or a job, and they've actually they come into therapy and talk about feeling marginalized by some of their female friends who may put them down. And no, absolutely not. You're doing something you love. You're creating a home. You're creating a family. You're just so you get up every day and love who you are and what you do.
Great advice. I mean, really, truly great advice. You give. I love how you sort of sum it up in pretty much any chapter. If you're just sort of going through it, at the end, you generally have something, what to reveal in a profile picture. You have the yes and the no. A hint of cleavage? Yes. What's on the no? Breasts front and center.
Right. If you've got
no, you and your cat. Yes. Dogs or other animals? Why not the cat?
Somebody just asked me that the other day. I was really joking about that.
Oh, you were?
But I have guys who talk about, oh my gosh, this woman was cat lady. That was a joke at the end. But that said, if you've got a dog, bring him into the profile. Cats,
Everybody
not so
loves
much.
a dog. And you know what I love? Your body from 10 years ago or your face. I mean, that's the number one thing I hear from friends. It's like, dude, he didn't look anything like that. He's bald now and he's portly. So just keep it real, everybody, right? Just keep
Absolutely.
It real.
And women, too, I hear the same, but the opposite from men. Like, wait a minute, this woman looks nothing like her picture. And then I have women coming in and not understanding why the guy didn't call back. And then I look at the picture and I'm like, no, let's be real.
Yeah. Great book. Anything that I didn't ask you that you'd like to add, please, before we leave?
Do we have another hour?
No,
there's
I wish.
There's a lot in there.
But something you want to make sure that we mention at least, and then they can pick up the book. Don't sleep with him yet to read the rest of it. What else do you think is important?
There's a whole bonus section on appearance. And again, this gets with me being a psychologist. And at first my editor did not want me to include a chapter on appearance. But heck, this is about dating.
So what do you do?
What I say to people is it's badass to own your appearance, blemishes and all, but accepting things doesn't mean you stop trying. So there's a really good chapter in there about women's relationship with beauty. I mean, last year we spent $42 billion in the U.S. on cosmetics.
It just says Kylie Jenner, right?
There you go.
The girl's a billionaire. And what is she, 20 or 21 years old?
You go.
Wow, 22, I think.
Yeah, so I've gotten what's ironic is I went from being told not to include that chapter to getting some really wonderful feedback
Isn't that
from
always
women
the way?
on that.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So what, just stay true to what you would normally wear? You don't have to go buy something outrageous?
Stay true to yourself, but it doesn't mean that, okay, if you're, for example, at an unhealthy weight or your jeans don't zip up, that you don't, I talk about exercise in there, but it doesn't mean that you just say, hey, this is me and anything goes. So there's a really interesting chapter on our relationship with beauty, but the feedback I've gotten is that it's really helped young
really
women in
helpful one.
particular. Yeah.
Great book. And also, how do people get in touch with you if they're in the area and they want to talk to you about therapy? Dr. Nancy Lee.
Right. So lots of different ways to find me or find the book. So Instagram just is Dr. Nancy Lee. So that's all DR.
Easy. Yeah.
Easy. DrNancyYlee. My email, if you want to email me, is nancyleephd@hotmail.com. The book is on Amazon. You can also look for special offers for the book, which I post periodically. There's one going on now on the Facebook page, which is Don't Sleep With Him Yet /the book. And my website will be up in about 2 weeks.
You know, this is a great, great book to have like for parties and whatnot. I would urge friends, you know, like get together for a book club meeting or just like on a Friday night or Saturday night, have some wine, and it'd be really fun to have the book and read excerpts from the book, call you to come out and read excerpts. I just think that's a really cool thing to do with your friends. It really would loosen stuff up.
And what's interesting is my married friends, and even I even got a message from somebody on Instagram as far away as Australia, and she's in a relationship, and she said the book has really helped her. So even people in relationships and married, there's a lot in there about brain chemistry and life related to attraction, mating, and just life and psychology. That's really, really fascinating.
Yeah, no, it is. It's not just for single people, or certainly not just for young single people. It's for, I got a lot out of this myself because, you know, we can all see ourselves in some of the relationships that are described in the book. So it's really a little bit for everyone, but I love it.
Men have gotten a lot out of it too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Don't Sleep With Him Yet. I suggest everyone pick this up. I really mean it. I loved reading this book. And please, if you have any questions, reach out to Dr. Nancy Lee. I really appreciate everybody being here today on Deborah Kobylt Live. You can find us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and for your audio podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, Apple Podcasts, and honestly, just about anywhere. You can find us anywhere. Deborah Kobylt Live. Thank you so much for being with us. Pick up the book, Don't Sleep With Him Yet, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.